Gentlelady from Texas reserves. The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from the great state of Texas, Mr. Weber.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for yielding me time. Mr. Speaker, when I testified before the Rules Committee yesterday on behalf of Science Committee Republicans, I expressed my frustration with the process that got us here. At nearly 3,000 pages, H.R. 4521 is a partisan package tossed together by Democrat leadership behind closed doors with no Republican input. Probably the only thing they lacked was a cigar smoke. As I stand before you today, Mr. Speaker, my serious concerns with the America Competes Act have only increased. After a backroom process last night, 261 out of the over 600 submitted amendments were made in order, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason why, Mr. Speaker. That's right. This week, we are going to consider 261 amendments to a 3,000-page bill. Frankly, the sheer number of the amendments reflects what happens when rank-and-file members on both sides of the aisle are not given an opportunity to legislate in their respective committees. This is a stark contrast, Mr. Speaker, to the way we do business on the Science Committee. And the fact that there are a dozen bipartisan Science Committee bills mixed up in this bag of poison pills only adds to the confusion. On that note, I want to be very, very clear. Just because this 3,000-page behemoth has bipartisan bills in it does not mean it's a bipartisan bill. Those bipartisan bills were hijacked and misused for political gamemanship. The plain truth is that the hundreds of unrelated partisan policies that were crammed into this bill ruined any chance of bipartisanship. Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed in the wasted opportunity. We have had shared momentum to take action on China. So instead of voting on this partisan catch-all bill with more references to coral reefs than to China, let's focus on what's most important. I don't know, how about strengthening American competitiveness and holding China accountable for its actions? We should get back to prioritizing truly productive, and by that I mean bipartisan, legislation to increase our international competitiveness, like H.R. 3593, the DOE Science for the Future Act, which passed the House last summer with 351 votes, I might add. Mr. Speaker, the stakes are higher than ever, and we cannot afford to put our national security and prosperity at risk. You know, Mr. Speaker, it's kind of ironic. The leftists on the other side of the aisle have ignored the Chinese threat for years, and now they've suddenly got religion. Kind of ironic. Now that I think about it, Mr. Speaker, the Compete Act may actually be a good title, as this so-called Compete Act may indeed compete as one of the worst bills ever. For that reason, I urge my colleagues to oppose this legislation. I yield back.
The gentleman from Florida reserves.